Today I finished out Genesis by reading Genesis 50, last book in this chapter. Um, and what was creaky chair? Okay, and it's still talking about Joseph. We're still in the story of Joseph, finishing off the story of Joseph. We're just after the death of Jacob. Um, and Joseph brings his whole family to bury Jacob in Canaan, as he requested. And then after Jacob dies and after he's buried, all of Joseph's brothers are scared because they think that he was just being nice to them for his father's sake. And now that his father's dead, now that their dad is gone, they think that he's gonna get his revenge because they sold him into slavery. So they think Joseph wants to get his revenge now. So they kind of trick him a little bit, and they're like, "Hey, before Dad died, he said to forgive us. That was his dying wish." And so they kind of tricked him. Joseph cried because of that. But like either way, Joseph was gonna forgive them, which is like I strive and I desire to have the level of forgiveness that Joseph has, for him to see and like have this trauma of being sold into slavery by his own brothers and the people that he trusted the most. And he was young, and like to get sold into slavery like that and to get treated so terribly in Egypt for the first time that he was there. um, but then he has this forgiveness because he has this awareness that God transformed his brother's mistakes for God's own purposes, which is beautiful. My study Bible has this part where it says, "Man proposes, God disposes," which is interesting. Um, where does it say that? Yeah, it says, "Here a clear message comes across. Man proposes, but God disposes. Joseph's brothers intended their actions toward Joseph for evil, but God turned those actions into good. It is wonderful that God can redeem our lives, transforming our mistakes and failures into the means for accomplishing his gracious purposes." So it's just like the Christian way that we're supposed to look at circumstances, and the godly way to look at circumstances, to look at how is God using this for good. And you might not see it, you probably won't see it, but when something bad happens, or when something not ideal happens, or when something annoying happens or sad happens, that is always going to work out for good, because that is God's plan. And it might take longer. Some things might take longer. Sorry, I'm not trying to do ASMR. I'm just, there was something in my mic and I was brushing it off. And then Joseph's own words are, "Don't be," when his brothers come to him and say, "Look, we are your slaves." He says, "Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I can save the lives of many people." Just fantastic. I mean, people always say it all works out for good, but it truly does, and it's important to remember that. And this is proof that it. The story of Joseph is the proof that it does, and this happens many times in the Bible and in real life. And I mean, yeah, there's a reason why a lot of the most successful and likable people had traumatic upbringings, and that's because everything gets worked out for good. So, yeah, that was Genesis 50, and that was the book of Genesis completed. And yeah, see you guys in Exodus, I guess. Unless I choose a different book. I also want to go through Timothy, both Timothys, because it seems like there's a lot of useful value there for me. And I would like to look into that. But yeah, see you tomorrow. Either way.